NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center goes dark. Engineers stare in shock as the $1.7 million source code for the International Space Station's life support systems is wiped from their servers. For 21 days, the world's premier space agency is forced into a total shutdown, costing taxpayers $41,000 in damage assessment alone. The intruder didn't use a high-tech lab or a foreign spy ring. He used a consumer-grade computer from his bedroom in Miami. Investigators didn't find a criminal syndicate. They found a 15-year-old 10th grader who couldn't legally drive. In the next 26 minutes, you'll learn how Jonathan James, known online as cyber-syndicate, outsmarted the Pentagon and became the first juvenile in American history incarcerated for cybercrime. And the most insane part? He didn't do it for money. He did it because no one believed a kid could. This is the story of the teenager who broke NASA. The impossible moment. June 29th, 1999, 10:14 a.m., Huntsville, Alabama. Inside the Marshall Space Flight Center, a lead systems engineer stares at his computer screen in a state of total and absolute shock. On the monitor, a series of command lines are running themselves with a speed that is much faster than any human could type. The engineer realizes, with a sick feeling of panic, that the root access, the highest level of power within NASA's internal network, has been stolen. This is not a small mistake. This is a total loss of control over the machines responsible for America's work in space. But here is what really scares the security team. The person who got in is not just looking around. This person has successfully walked past the walls of the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, or the DTRA. This is a part of the Department of Defense that is tasked with watching nuclear and chemical threats. From there, the ghost in the machine moved directly into NASA's most private folders. In the next 20 days, the United States government will be forced to do something that has never been seen before. They will shut down every single computer at the Marshall Space Flight Center, making the agency's research and work stop completely. The cost of this forced shutdown is huge. It will take $41,000 in taxpayer money just to see how bad the damage is, and another few $100,000 to build the computer systems back from the start. In the next few minutes, you will learn how a 10th grader with a fake name borrowed from a book managed to outsmart the smartest computer security experts in the world. Using nothing but a normal computer and a need to be noticed, this boy broke through the walls of a system built to survive a war. And the most crazy part, he was not even trying to hide. He was grabbing thousands of military emails and downloading the secret code for the International Space Station's life support systems. While NASA engineers were calculating the air levels for astronauts in space, a 15-year-old in Miami was sitting in his bedroom, looking at the exact same numbers. He had the power to turn off the air for every person currently in space. This is the story of Jonathan James, the boy who showed that the most powerful systems on Earth are only as strong as their weakest unpatched part. To give you an idea of the scale, NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center is not just any office. It is where they design the engines that lift humans off the planet. It is where they manage the science that happens in orbit. When those screens went black, it wasn't just a loss of email, it was a loss of the American lead in technology. The engineers there were used to thinking about physics and gravity, not a teenager in Florida who had found a way to become the king of their network. The agency had to check every single line of code. They had to assume that because Jonathan had been there, nothing could be trusted. Imagine a chef finding a stranger in his kitchen at midnight. Even if the stranger says they didn't touch anything, the chef has to throw out all the food and wash every pan just to be sure. That is what NASA did for 3 weeks. They threw out their digital food. The underdog origin. To understand why a 15-year-old would go after the Department of Defense, you have to look at how things were in Miami, Florida, in the middle of the 1990s. Jonathan James was a kid who grew up right as the internet was becoming a big deal. While other kids his age were busy with skateboards or playing the first PlayStation, Jonathan was a digital loner. He was quiet and didn't stand out much in school. He felt like an outsider in a world that liked kids who were good at sports or very popular. But online, Jonathan was cluttered. In the chat rooms and early message boards, he was not a teenager with a bedtime. He was a master of the Unix system. He spent his nights teaching himself how to write code and how to find the weak spots in the early internet. The adults in the hacking world, the experts who had been doing this for 10 years, didn't listen to him because he was young. They called him names and said he was just using other people's tools. Jonathan decided that he didn't just want to be a part of the group. He wanted to be the best. His broke moment was not about having no money, even though he was a kid with almost nothing in his bank account. It was a lack of respect. He felt invisible. He wanted to prove that he could do things that the adults were too scared to try. He started practicing on school networks and local college systems, like Florida International University. He learned that most big systems were like houses with a lot of doors. You don't have to break the front door if you can find one small window in the back that someone forgot to lock. The light bulb moment happened when Jonathan was looking at a list of computer addresses linked to the government. He found a specific weak point in a server at NASA. It was a huge mistake by the experts, a digital open window that the biggest agency in the world had simply forgotten to shut. Most people would see that and be too scared to go inside. Jonathan saw it, and saw a way to make everyone finally look at him. He didn't want to steal money or sell secrets to another country. He just wanted the high of being somewhere he wasn't allowed to be. He believed the system was full of itself. He thought that if NASA and the Department of Defense were as smart as they said they were, they wouldn't have left the door open. In his mind, he was like a person testing a lock to show the owner it was broken. But the big question was, how do you stay hidden in a system that is supposed to see everything? Jonathan's bedroom was his command center. It was filled with old computer parts, tangled wires, and empty soda cans. To his parents, he was just a kid doing homework or playing games. They didn't know that their son was currently walking through the hallways of the Pentagon. They didn't know that while they were watching TV, Jonathan was reading the private emails of generals and nuclear scientists. The tension at home was also a factor. Jonathan's father was strict. He wanted his son to follow the rules and do well in school. This made the digital world even more attractive. Online, there were no rules for Jonathan. He could go anywhere. He could be anyone. He felt a sense of power that he never felt in his real life. He was a king in a world of code, and the real world was starting to feel very small. The mechanism. This is the part where we explain exactly how a kid beat the government. To understand how Jonathan James got past the security of the Pentagon and NASA, you have to understand a tool called the packet sniffer. Back in the late 90s, computer security was still very new. The way he did this is a great example of using people's trust against them. The tool Jonathan used was a program called a sniffer. Think of a computer network like a big highway. Information moves in small pieces called packets, which are like cars. Each car has a bit of data, a name, a password, or a part of an email. Usually these cars go straight from the person sending them to the person getting them, and no one else can see inside. But Jonathan put a sniffer program on a main computer inside the military network. The system works like this. The sniffer forces the computer to look at everything. Usually, a computer only looks at the mail that has its name on it. But in this special mode, the computer reads every single piece of mail that passes by on the wire. Most computer workers at the time thought that if someone was already inside the building, they were allowed to be there. But Jonathan found the one mistake everyone else missed. The internal messages of the Department of Defense were being sent without any protection. It was like they were writing their secrets on the back of a postcard that anyone could read. To build his tool, Jonathan didn't need a super-fast computer. He used a simple script he had worked on for months in his room. He changed the way the network worked. He was like a person standing in the middle of a post office, reading every letter as it went by. He didn't have to guess people's passwords. He just watched them type them in. In just a few hours, he had stolen the names and passwords for over 3,000 military workers. Once he had those passwords for the military, he used them to jump even further. This is what hackers call moving sideways. He used the trust between the military and NASA to jump over the fence. He targeted a specific type of computer at NASA. His method was very careful. He used a known weak point in a service that lets computers talk to each other. He sent a special message that tricked the computer into giving him full control. It worked perfectly. He didn't just get inside, he became the owner of the system. He then downloaded a file that would change his life forever. It was a massive pile of code, about 1.7 gigabytes. In 1999, that was a huge amount of data. It would be like trying to download a huge movie on a very slow connection today. This code was the life support software for the International Space Station. This code controlled the air, the heat, and the water for the astronauts in space. NASA's shutdown was a desperate move to protect their people. When they found out the code was stolen, they had to assume the space station was in danger. They didn't know if Jonathan had left a timer in the code that would break things later. They had to turn every machine off, delete everything, and check every single line of code by hand. For 21 days, the best space agency in the world had to use paper and pencils while they tried to find the ghost who stole their secrets. Imagine the pressure on those NASA engineers. They are responsible for the lives of people floating 250 miles above the Earth. They had to tell the astronauts that a kid in Miami might have the keys to their air supply. The software Jonathan took was worth $1.7 million on paper, but to the people on the space station, it was worth everything. They couldn't take the risk that he might have changed a single number. If the humidity was off by a little bit, or the oxygen was a tiny bit low, people could die. Jonathan, meanwhile, was just looking at the code to see how it worked. He wasn't changing anything. He was like a kid who breaks into a museum to look at the dinosaurs after the museum is closed. He just wanted to see the bones of the system. He didn't realize that by just being there, he was causing a national emergency. The heat. 11 p.m. September 21, 1999. Jonathan is in his room. The only light is the soft blue glow from his monitor. He is busy working on a computer in California when he notices the system is a little slow. He looks at his watch. He has been online for 6 hours. He thinks it's just a slow internet connection. He doesn't know that for 3 months, the Secret Service and the Department of Defense have been drawing a map that leads straight to his house. The hunt had started the second NASA realized their code was missing. The people looking for him used a trick called triangulation. Every time Jonathan logged in, he left a small trail. He tried to hide by sending his signal through computers in other countries like Sweden and Germany. But every time the signal jumps, it takes a tiny bit of time. The agents measured that time. They realized the person was always online during the evening in the eastern part of the US. 1:15 a.m. The agents work with the phone company in Miami. They ask for the records of one specific house. They aren't looking for a name yet. They are looking for a pattern. They find a match. One house in a quiet neighborhood is sending a ton of data to government computers. This is no longer a game. It is a national security emergency. Though 8:30 a.m. The next morning, a group of black SUVs pulls into the street. The neighborhood is just waking up. People are getting their mail. Kids are waiting for the school bus. The agents don't use their sirens. They don't want to make a scene. They want to get the computers before Jonathan can delete anything. They go to the door. Jonathan's mother answers. She is very confused, as 5 men in suits show their badges. Is your son home? The raid is quick and quiet. They find Jonathan in his room. He is not the scary criminal they thought they would find. He is just a skinny 15-year-old in a t-shirt, looking scared as his world ends. He doesn't try to run away. He doesn't try to delete his files. He just sits there. The room is very tense. The agents look at his computer. They see the code. They see the stolen military emails. The truth hits them. They didn't catch a spy from another country. They caught a kid. When they talked to him, the agents were very tough at first. They wanted to know who he was working for. Who paid you? Was it Russia? Jonathan's answers were honest. No one. I just wanted to see if I could do it. He explained the weak points he found. He showed them how he did it. The agent's mood changed from being angry to being impressed. He knew more about their computers than the people who were paid to run them. One agent said that the boy's skill was truly scary. But the law does not care if you are smart. It cares that you broke the rules. Jonathan is arrested. He is treated like a criminal. His heart is beating fast. He thinks that if he tells them the truth, they will see he didn't want to hurt anyone. But to the government, he had already done the damage. He showed everyone that the American military could be beaten by a teenager, and the government does not like to look weak. He is 15 years old, and he is about to become a warning for everyone else. The interrogation lasted for hours. Jonathan sat in a small room with no windows. He was still wearing the same clothes he had on when the agents came into his room. He explained things like buffer overflows and root access to men who were twice his age. He felt a strange mix of fear and pride. For the first time, people were actually listening to him. They were treating him like he was important, but the price for that importance was his freedom. He told them about the sniffer he had placed. He told them how he had found a way into the Marshall Space Flight Center through an old computer that nobody was using. He was giving them a map of all their own mistakes. Every time he spoke, the agents realized how much work they were going to have to do to fix everything. Jonathan was a one-man wrecking ball for the government's digital pride. The fall and the legend, the end of Jonathan James's story did not happen all at once. It was a slow and painful falling apart. In the year 2000, he became the first kid in American history to be locked up for a computer crime. His punishment was very specific: 6 months of house arrest, a rule that he could not use a computer for fun, and time in a juvenile jail. He was 16 years old when